Hey, Alli, have you given any thought to retirement?
Shawna, what do you think? I'm 85.
Well, according to our guest, we should be thinking about, what our retirement's going to look like as early as our 30s and 40s.
Yes, you're right. And we are so excited to have Miss Linda Brambila on the show today, who is a former owner of a Merle Norman franchise for 29 years. And her franchise was the number one franchise in the world in 2019. And now she's retired. And she is going to tell us all the things we need to consider.
Let's give a shout out to Miss Sarah McLean. Thanks for listening. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
I know that I dream about sitting on the beach retired all the time. And today we get to talk to Linda, who can tell us what that life is all about. So welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, Linda.
Thank you so very much. I'm glad to be here.
And let's jump in and find out about this retirement you have done. So you retired in 2021. So you're coming up on, I guess, almost getting close to the 3-year mark. And how did you know it was time to retire?
You know, that is something that kind of works for everybody. But in 2019, our business was the number one studio in the Merle Norman system. And that is a pretty big accomplishment, especially for our community of Macon, Georgia. And my husband and I had been shopping around for several years looking for a place to retire because we said, we can live anywhere. Our family was all gone from Macon, and I said, we can retire anywhere. And we found this lovely place in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I'll expound on all of the benefits of being here at a later time. But after being number one, we knew that was going to be a hard thing to sustain. And then, of course, 2020 came and COVID. And I said, well, we got to hang on long enough to make sure the business is surviving before we try to sell it. And but we were at the point where we knew that we were ready to not be in business anymore. I knew that technology was changing. And some of it I was not comfortable with, such as Facebook Live and all of that stuff. And then, as I said, COVID came along and I was forced into it. It was either that or the business was not going to survive. So we were very fortunate to find a time that worked for us. And as it happened, the business sold, the house went on the market, our tenants who were here at the beach moved out, and everything was wonderful. It just all fell in place. And I think that's what happens for a lot of people. They just realize it's time, and then things fall into place like cards.
Things fall into place, but you also made some of those cards fall into place, right?
I've been that kind of person pretty much all my life. If it's not happening for me, I'm going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think once you wrap your head around this is something that I want to do, you see doors or windows that you might not have formerly seen, and options and opportunities become available that you might not have been looking for before.
Exactly. And because I knew that we were approaching a time to retire, and some of my colleagues in business stayed in business and died in their business, and that was not something that I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do some traveling and relax and enjoy my sunrises and sunsets. And literally, we looked at property on what I call the big pond all over Florida, all the way across the Gulf Coast. And when we found this condo, it met all of my requirements. And we bought it and owned it for several years before we were able to retire. But the things that fall into place are, do you have a list of potential buyers? Do you have a plan for downsizing your home? There are just a lot of things that you have to wrap your head around and be sure that you're ready for it. And probably one of the hardest things that I had to do was to pack up the house in Macon and get it ready for us to move here, because we had to downsize a lot of things. And it's a very emotional thing to do that. After you spent 40 years in the same house, it's really, really difficult to turn loose of those memories and be ready to move into something that's a little bit smaller and more comfortable.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I guess it's untying the attachment of memories and things, because your memories come with you, but then but the things don't. And then making the decisions of what comes and give away, donate. But like that, how long did that process take?
About 2 months.
You did it quickly.
Oh, I did. I had prepared my list. And I knew that we wanted to clear the house, clean it, and have it ready to show when we left Macon. And it was a labor of love, to say the very least. But there were just a lot of things that we had collected over the years that meant a great deal to us at that time in that house. But then we had to let go of a lot of it. And Goodwill got a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
And
is it kind of freeing to get rid of some of that stuff that you had for years and years and move to somewhere smaller, or is it one of those things that it's uncomfortable and you miss some of that stuff?
Well, so I'll give you a little story. Bob, my husband, had always had a collection of pigs, and years ago I told my girls, I said, you're not allowed to give Bob any pigs unless they're serviceable, unless they do something. So my daughters gave him a mortar and pestle. It was a marble pig, and it was a nice little fat pig. And when I pulled together, and he said, we're not going to take a pig collection with us to the beach. And I said, okay. So I packed up all pigs. When we got here, we'd been here about a year, and he says, where's the mortar and pestle? And I went, oops. So I had to go buy him a new mortar and pestle. But it's not a pig. But it's much smaller and easier to keep in our much smaller kitchen. So everything's all good.
Yeah.
So there was nothing that you were just like, oh, besides that, there's nothing that you just really missed a lot.
No, there were some things that I had to set aside because my heart wouldn't let me turn loose of them or put them in the trash or give them away. And I just told Bob, I said, I'm putting this in your hands and you do with it as you please. And you don't need to tell me what you did. It's just not going to Mississippi with me. So,
yeah.
Wow. That's a good strategy. Pass the buck on getting rid of stuff. I like it.
Yeah. But we got rid of lots of books and just a lot of things that had been hanging around for a really long time. And we're still downsizing.
Uh,
Wow.
would you recommend, you've been in the house 40 years, you said, which is
Yes.
which is great and terrible, because especially if you have room to store things, then you just have so many things. So would you recommend to people, our listeners, your friends that are, considering going through this process of doing kind of mini purges more regularly, so that when it comes to the big purge, it's easier? Or is it just like a pay me now or pay me later type thing? It's just all going to be hard.
Well, one of the things that I did was I told my daughters, I have 3 daughters, and I told them, I said, all right, we're looking at a place to move somewhere down the road. And I said, I want you to think about the things that are here in this house, because I'm going to start, and this was 5 years before we ready to retire. I said, I'm going to start downsizing little by little, knowing that we're going to be in a smaller place. And so each of them wanted a set of dishes that we had. I said, great, because I knew that 5 sets of dishes were not going to be able to come to this condo. And I packed them up and sent them to them then, and got that much out of the house. As I went through the dish closet, there were some little mementos of, oh, well, this was this set, and there's nothing left but this, and we just had to let it go. And I made up my mind that when we got here, while we're at the beach, everybody says, oh, you want the little cute dishes. Not me, I got my good china here. And because we never used it, ever. And now it's my everyday dishes.
Nice.
So we enjoy eating, and neighbors come to eat with us, and they go, really? The good china? That's what we got. What we're living with. So,
Well, what are you waiting for? You got to use it now. Otherwise,
right.
it's not going to get used.
Well, and my girls got the pieces that they want. So we were left with this one set, and we use it every day. And
that's awesome.
And knock on wood, in 3 years have not broken a piece.
Well, and if you did, okay. But the fact that, like, most people, like myself included, I've just started using my mom's china for our Sunday dinners, because it's like, why am I not using it? It's beautiful. And it's like, lots of times we just keep the good things for when.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So break it out. Break out the good stuff.
Exactly.
That's a very good.
Or get rid of it in my world. I've been getting rid of dishes. I just got rid of my china, my mom's china, but my sister took it, so that's
yeah,
still in the family. But it got out of my house, and I feel free to get it out of here.
That's what you need to do too. I got rid of, I did a home reno and got rid of a ton of stuff, because I've only been in my condo for 12 years. And it's like, oh my goodness, the things, the books, I got rid of tons of furniture. It's like, it is a bit liberating. I mean, I'm not in the space of retirement yet, but I felt lighter. It was cathartic for me. So, it was a good step for me, but doing kind of that, not the final step, because like you said, you're continuing to purge. But I think part of it is that maybe you realize you don't really need all the stuff.
Right. And we also had a huge collection of audiobooks, books on CD. And so when we got here, the HOA has a library, and we donated all that to the library. And we said, it's there. We can use it anytime we want to, but other people can enjoy it as well.
Yeah, nice. Are there any surprises with retirement? Some unexpected happiness or frustrations? How was the adjustment once you kind of got settled?
I remember years ago when I was in business, and one of my customers says, well, I can't spend that much money today because I'm on a fixed income, and I just thought for a minute, and I said, gee, I wish my income was fixed. But now that it is, it can be a little scary when you see inflation happening. One of the things that kind of we were blindsided by is the massive increase in insurance on waterfront properties because of all the hurricanes that are happening. And it doesn't have to happen here. No matter where it is, the insurance companies cover all of those waterfront properties. So that was kind of an eye opener. And so it's something that will kind of shake you up a little bit financially until you kind of get everything to settle back down and figure out where it's going to go. One of the joys of living in a high-rise condo is that you run into your neighbors a lot more often than you do when you're in a subdivision. And we do a lot of things here in the building to create fun and excitement. And then there are groups of people who do things together. Years ago, I taught aerobics and dance and aqua aerobics before my Merle Norman career. And so I lead the aqua aerobics program here. We have 5 or 6 ladies who float in and out, literally. And we just have a really good time. And we all get a little bit of exercise and gives us a chance to socialize in the pool too. So it's a really wonderful thing. I said I feel that I have more girlfriends than I've ever had. So it's been a fun thing.
Tell us a little bit about where you're living. You told us off camera. Share a little bit about your community.
Okay, we are in a high-rise condo. There are about 100 units, and about 40 or so of the units are people who live here year-round. Some of the folks, it's a second home, and we're literally right on the Mississippi Sound. Ordinarily, it's a truly beautiful day, but today it's raining and all I see out there is clouds. But we're on the 21st floor, so I can literally see forever on a clear day. 5 miles in either direction, and every clear day, I get a beautiful sunrise and a beautiful sunset because of the position of the building. So I just feel like I'm in heaven right here. A lot of times you'll see posted on my Facebook page, today's sunrise or today's sunset. And every now and then I get a good picture of the moon on the Sound. And when we have full moons, it's really nice. So I've become really obnoxious with posting those things.
As you should. I want to ask about you being a business owner and retiring, because that's a little bit, retirement is a big decision, no matter what's your field of work. But when you own a business, then you have to plan for your own retirement, and that becomes a different animal. And then you've got this business you've got to figure out what to do with. And so I know that we have listeners that might be in that same boat. What are some considerations that maybe a business owner has to think about related to retirement, and how did you maneuver those that wouldn't be something that someone else in a different type of job would have to contend with?
Right. There are just a lot of things to think about. When you own a business and you are very active in the operation of that business on a day-to-day basis, you have to make sure that you have your finger on which direction is going to be right for you, whether you place it with a broker or try to sell it yourself. I had always groomed employees with the idea that somebody might be able to step into the business and become the owner. All 3 of my daughters worked in the business at some point, but they all chose to go their own path. And with that, I knew that I was going to have to find a buyer at retirement time. So I made a list I made a list of other owners who might be interested in purchasing my business and other business owners. I was in a mastermind group there in Macon, and all of those ladies were on my list because I said, these are good business owners. They might be good. This might be a good adjunct business for them. So those are things that must be considered. And I was very fortunate that Merle Norman also offered transitional support. And a lot of franchises will do that. They'll have an opportunity for you to have them help you price the business and so that it will sell. I mean, you can ask anything for a home or a business or whatever, but if you don't price it right, it's not going to sell. So those were the steps that I took. And as it happened, one of my employees came to me and said, I really want to think about this. So we sat down and talked and mentored and made it work for both of us. She's now past her third year as a business owner and doing just fine.
Yeah, and one thing, because I know you, Linda, I know this, and that is that you put it out there. Like your employee wouldn't have just come to you probably and said, hey, I'm interested in this, but you let people know. And what point did you start letting people know, hey, I'm going to sell this business? And how did you start telling people? Because that also has to be because I also know this about you, you're very active in your business. And so when you're very active in your business, it can be kind of scary, I'm sure, to tell people, hey, I'm going to retire at some point, or I'm really getting serious about this and I'm looking to move on. How did you juggle all that? And how did you work that so that you didn't terrify your customers and you were able to let it be known so you could find a buyer?
Right. I just talked to them. I always sent out emails and what have you. And I said, if you or somebody is interested in this, come and talk to me. In the vernacular of the used car salesman, we had a lot of tire kickers. Mm-hmm. And they, just a lot of people who thought they wanted to buy the business or were just simply trying to find out exactly how much I was going to sell it for, but I wanted to because ours was such a personal type business and we had so many clients who had been with us for 29 years. I wanted to make sure that they were going to be well cared for. And pretty much anybody who knew me will tell you that I spoiled my clients rotten. And if there was something she wanted, she got it. We had a good inventory and they got great things at the holiday time and they got great things on their birthdays. And we tried to make sure that goods and services were available to them always. And I wanted to make sure that continued on.
Now, you emailed your actual customer list. Is that who you're saying you emailed?
I sure did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people might not think to do or might think that, oh, gosh, no, I would never do that. But it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I had a colleague in business who said, I need to talk to somebody who sold their business because I want to sell my business, but I don't want to let everybody know. It's like, okay, so you want to put your house on the market, but you're not going to put a sign out in front of it? You got to trust that realtor a whole lot. My feeling was always you have to let the word be out there. The clients also have a vested interest in the business being passed on to someone that is good. Mm-hmm. And they might know someone that you don't. So word of mouth. Best advertising in the world.
Well, and also if you have not checked out mentally and you continue to offer quality goods and services in the process of saying, hey, realistically, I'm not going to be running this business for the rest of my life. Like I'm looking to pass it on to someone who can continue to provide this great service for you. I think that's a whole different story than if you just kind of quietly just check out, don't do the little things that you would have done previously. So your customers were still behind you.
Yeah. And that is a hard thing. A lot of people mentally check out first, and that's sad because it makes it far more difficult to sell your business at a price that is going to benefit you. And, the other thing is that we also knew that whoever was going to step into that business needed to be successful. You don't want to sell them a business that's, oh, well, mine's the number one studio in the whole world. Well, that's great, but that doesn't make it worth $5 million. You've got to make it a reasonable price so that the person coming in can continue to be profitable and make a living. So it's important, but I was determined that until my last day in that studio, it was my business, and I was going to run it as it was my business, as I had for 29 years. And that's a hard attitude to maintain. There were several times that I wanted to just say, "Phooey, I can just go home," but I didn't.
Was there a period of, because you do want new owners to be successful, was there a period of handoff, of mentoring, where you kind of supported, maybe in a consulting role, or were you just out?
Pretty much I was there for about 3 months. The young lady who purchased my business had been my employee for 7 years.
Yeah.
So I felt like she probably had a handle on how I had run things, and she wanted to do things differently, and she started to make changes, and she was doing fine. So I said, you know what? I need to go home and start cleaning out my house and getting ready to move.
If you had advice for people, people think of retirement as, like it's somewhere in the future. When do you plan your retirement?
I think it's important for people to start planning their retirement in their 30s, 40s. Young people don't need to defer the planning. If you work for a company that has matching 401ks, max it out. Make sure that you have that retirement fund. You don't borrow it. You don't touch it. You leave it there, because that money will continue to grow and build. And then when you are ready to retire, you will have a nice nest egg. People in their 40s and 50s probably haven't started something, and they need to. And as a sole proprietor business owner, we had to really carefully look at what we thought we were going to need down the road to live on. And that was why I worked until I was 70, because that way I maxed out my Social Security, gave us a nice little cushion on the side so that we didn't have to worry every single minute about and every little purchase that we made to make sure that we're okay. And y'all can tell I eat well. And that's what it's about. But retirement has to be a personal decision. Although quite often businesses say, okay, you're 65, you're out of here. We have a number of neighbors here who are former pilots. I think they were told to retire. Well, I know they were told that they had to retire at a certain age. I think it has been extended a little bit now. It's you're out of here. And when you've been flying planes forever, then what do you do otherwise? It's kind of boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Retirement is a little bit of it's a mind twist because you're, socking, if you're like you're putting away money, for a rainy day, for later. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I've been thinking about that. And for me, that is it's like, wow, because you really have to plan your spending and your death about, right?
Well, there was a gentleman who said to me one time that he said, it is my objective to spend every dime, and the last check I write is going to bounce. And I said, well, good luck with that. And I've always told everybody, none of us have found the expiration date on the bottom of our feet or under our armpits or whatever. We don't know how many years we have ahead of us or days. Plans need to be made ahead for whatever contingency. You need to be prepared for all kinds of catastrophes. Sometimes it's health related, sometimes it's natural disasters, and you need to have in mind what you're going to do in different situations. But retirement, and one thing that my internist in Macon said, okay, Linda, you're going to retire. That's great. Don't stop moving. And I said, well, here's my plan. I'm moving to a place where there's a pool, and I plan to get in the pool and exercise. She said, good. Don't stop. You also, when you've been working 8, and if it's your own business, 10, 12 hours a day, then what do you do with your time? Are you going to become the housekeeper, or are you going to volunteer? Are you going to seek a part-time job? And I did the first year we were here. I looked at taking a part-time job, and then I realized, I really kind of like sitting out on the balcony out there and just watching the little sailboats and the Coast Guard helicopters and the exciting things that are going on. And I want to be here. I don't want to be stuck in an office somewhere. I did that I had the same view for almost 30 years. But this one's a little nicer. And I think I want to enjoy it as much as I possibly can. But if I can give advice to anybody, it's that when you do retire, your priorities change. Your money is already set in place. It is what it is for the most part, unless you win the lottery or something. But the most important thing for me, the most important focus has now become taking care of my health, because that's where my wealth is. I see an awful lot of people who are struggling, joint issues, arthritis, post-stroke issues, just a lot of aging difficulty. When I moved here, I had some severe mobility, flexibility, and strength problems. And I felt like I was about 93. Today, because I've been exercising an hour or so every day, I feel more like I did when I was like 55.
Nice.
And that is a big help in keeping a positive attitude. And, my balance still is not as great as I'd like for it to be, because I literally stood in one place for a good 10 years. We're out of a place in the tile over there. Your wealth becomes your health, or your health becomes your wealth. And
Yeah.
I think that is an important thing for people to understand. It's a different mindset, a really different mindset.
And I would say that, to not wait until retirement to look after your health. and I'm sure you didn't, but you were able to invest more in yourself because you had the time once retirement came. So
Exactly.
is there anything you would have done differently going, looking back? Would you have spent more time on your health, or would you have spent time or money differently prior to, what would you have done differently?
Probably I guess my only regret is that I would have diversified my business a little more to have earned more money quicker. But we had pretty much decided that the 70-year-old mark was it. And my home in Macon was 3 stories. I did 3 flights of stairs every day. And some days I did them 4 or 5 times because I was going from the basement to the upstairs bedrooms. But so that was a pretty good exercise program. And so I didn't do much outside the home for exercise. I always craved the pool, and we didn't have one and could not have had one because, and Alli can tell you, we lived by the creek and in a wooded area. So it was, there was no pool to be had there. And I found myself being called to the pool at the end of it. And that was my aim and objective, was to get here as quickly as I possibly could so that I could get in the pool and start exercising, because I had some joint problems and some mobility problems. And a very wise fitness instructor helped me with some issues that took care of some of it for another year or two. So it helped me survive working in that immobile environment. But differently, no, I think I picked my place to retire, and we worked our way through it. And we looked at retirement in 2015. That was when we had to move our location from one place to the other. And my husband was vacillating. We're just going to close the business and we're going to retire. And I said, okay, here's the issue. And I've always done this. This is something that I found works well for me. You take a piece of paper and put a line down the center and go, this is what's good and this is what's bad. And I said, okay, we're going to retire. I said, did we get to keep the airplane and fly? He said, no, we got to sell the airplane. And I said, so are we going to be able to travel at all? He said, probably not, because we don't have that much money set aside. And I said, so you're telling me that I'm going to spend the next 25 years in Macon, Georgia, watching cats sleep? And he said, yeah, pretty much. And I said, sharpen your pencil, Buster. We're going to build a new store. and we did. And it was amazing. So my clients followed me over there, and we did just absolutely wonderful. As I said, in 2019, we were top studio in the world. And there's no better time to go out than when you're on top.
Yes.
When your business starts to decline, it's time to think of selling and moving on to something else. And another thing is, when, especially for business owners, when the passion goes and you just don't feel like you can get the passion back for the business, it's time to do something else. That's a very emotional thing to do, but I've seen that happen also, and my heart goes out to those people, because I was very passionate about what I did until the day I left, and I still love it. I still love helping people with their skincare. So
nice. And sometimes passion goes, but it moves in another direction, and so that's okay too. So it's not always all bad.
No, and people do. There comes a fork in the road, and you take this one instead of that one, and that's fine. But you have to follow that passion. And I've known a lot of people who were had 5 different businesses in their lives, and that's kind of wonderful. But the one that I was in was the one that I dreamed of being in when I was 13. So I didn't make it until I was almost 40. We did okay.
What about financial decisions, Linda? Is there something that you can point to other than staying in the business after y'all were, instead of closing when y'all needed to move? Financial decisions that you made that were smart, that worked out well, that you could, just pass on or share?
In regards to retirement, Bob has always handled our finances because he was in the financial business, but he kept me aware always of, we have this far to go before we can have enough money set aside so that we can take care of all the bills. And he had an Excel spreadsheet of, this is the budget with this much money, and this is the budget with this much money. And so we were aware of what we were up against and how much we might be able to spend on travel and entertainment and that sort of thing. And I just really think that that's an important thing for people to do, especially business owners who are accustomed to dealing with those finances on a day-to-day basis. You just need to transfer it over to a household situation and get your fingers on the pulse and make sure that you know that you have what you can be comfortable with. And it may be a lot less than you think. You don't have to be a gajillionaire, in spite of what the commercials say.
Yeah, we had recently we had Lynn Tran on, who is a financial advisor. And I think that was probably her top tip, is be aware, because a lot of women defer financial decisions or awareness to their partner.
Right.
And then, just being aware, and so that you can be part of that decision-making process.
Exactly. More couples part because of differences in financial perspective and desires, and more arguments about finances than anything else. And we talk a lot about finances, and we know each other's desires, and that makes a big, big difference. So it's very important that you are aware and that you talk about it, and talk about it realistically. Don't say, oh yeah, well I can do without that, and then be miserable about it. No, I'd really like to have that. How can we figure out a way to get it? That might be a better approach.
If you had a wish for our listeners today, Linda, what would it be?
I would wish for the listeners today to be as happy as I am right now, because and for them to understand that the things that are important when you're working seem to fall away, and so does the stress. But you do have to look around and be appreciative of the little things that nature offers us to create beauty in your life. I'm just so thrilled to be retired in the place that I want to be, and consider myself to be very blessed, and I'm very grateful. I think it's important that people know to keep moving. I remember back in the pageant days, the question that was always given on stage, which is more important, to be healthy, wealthy, or wise? And really, it's a trio that has to come together. Wisdom can help you to attain good health, which can help you attain wealth. But realistically, without your health, you can't reach out and get wealth or wisdom. And I've been blessed with good health pretty much all my life. Hope to have another 20 or 30 years here. So, I would wish that for anybody who is about to go into retirement. that you live long and prosper.
How about you, Alli?
My wish would be that our listeners have the health to have a good retirement and live their best life and enjoy their retirement.
Mhm.
Yeah, and my wish would be that people look at their health now, similar to you, Alli, so that, they don't wait to retire to have, to enjoy life, that they can start to enjoy life now, that they look after their health so that then they have longer time to enjoy their retirement.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.